This is The Civil Fleet, the podcast focused on the activist-led refugee rescue and support missions across Fortress Europe, with me, Ben Coles. In today's episode, we're going to speak with Nadia, a young refugee woman, and her Greek lawyer, Alexandros. It's going to be in two parts. So the first part, we're going to hear from Nadia. She's going to tell us how her and her husband, Dawood, were forced to flee Lebanon, how they spent over 10 days adrift in the Mediterranean, and how once they were rescued, Dawood was arrested and accused by the Greek authorities of human smuggling. In the second part of the episode, we're going to hear from Alexandros, who's been on the podcast before actually. Alexandros is going to tell us how he and his colleague Dmitris won the legal case against Dawood, and tells us more about the unjust EU directive that is locking refugees up for human smuggling. Oh, before we get into the episode, I should also thank Miriam for doing a brilliant job translating Nadia. Thank you so much, Miriam. And to Alexandros, not only for being on the episode, but also for putting me in touch with Nadia. The man's a hero. As usual, before we get into the episode, I'd like to remind you that The Civil Fleet is not just a podcast, it's also a news blog. So go to civilfleet.com for that. You can see news reports, written interviews, investigative stories and stuff there. Not really had time to update that recently, but still getting the podcast out, which is good. Also, if you like what the Civil Fleet is doing and you want to help us to continue to platform the amazing refugees, the refugee rescuers, the support people, the lawyers, the activists, the journalists, and all these cool people that I've had the pleasure of talking to on this podcast. If you want to help us to do that, then you can do so by making a small donation at this website, ko-fi.com/civilfleet. That's ko-fi.com/civilfleet. The Civil Fleet has no ads like some annoying podcasts. It's totally grassroots and funded completely by myself. And so any help that you can give us would be greatly appreciated. I know times are hard, so you can't really do that. But what you can do if you can't give us a donation is you can rate the podcast, you can share us around, you can tell your friends about it, get the word out. That would really help. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's get on with the first part of this episode. Here is the interview with Nadia, and translated by Mariam. Oh, and I should also add that you're going to hear Nadia's child popping up throughout this interview with a few things to say. So yeah, here we go. First of all, Nadia, thank you so much for coming on the Civil Fleet podcast.
Thank you to you as well.
I know you've been through some terrible times, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, I think, and a bit about your life. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm really pleased to talk to you and to get your story out.
Okay.
So my first question, Nadia, is can you tell us a bit about your background, a bit about your life before you left Lebanon?
To be honest, it was quite difficult. It wasn't very easy to live in Lebanon, especially the economy. Financially, it wasn't very well.
And where did you live in Lebanon?
They used to live in a camp in Lebanon.
Okay. And are you from Lebanon originally? That's your hometown, your home country?
I'm originally from Lebanon, but my in-laws they used to live in this camp, and when I got married, I had to move with them.
And Nadia, can you tell us why did you have to leave Lebanon? What happened? Why did you have to leave?
Because basically I wasn't feeling very well back then, and I needed the hospital, but obviously we didn't have the money to go to the hospital. The situation was getting worse and worse, so that's actually when we decided to leave Lebanon.
So what year did you leave Lebanon?
2022, I think.
2022. So did you live in Lebanon when the explosion in Beirut happened?
Yes, I was there.
Maybe you could tell us sorry if this is a hard question, but maybe you can tell us like how was life at that time when you had to leave?
So basically what she's saying is when she first got married, everything was fine financially. They were stable, they were managing, but as time goes by, the things, financially, their life financially got worse. Obviously in Lebanon it's hard to find jobs. She got married, and sometimes they couldn't find food, or they couldn't actually get food to eat, which is not very good for a pregnant woman. So that's why they decided to get out of Lebanon for a better future.
Sounds like it was a really hard place to live. Could you say, Nadia, how old were you when you left Lebanon?
كان عمري 17 سنة.
17 years old.
Wow. And so now you are like 19, 20?
19.
19, wow. Okay, and then so you and your husband Dawood decided to leave the country. What did you do next?
بعدين طلعنا لهون.
We tried to come to here, basically. I can't remember exactly how many days we spent in the sea, but I'm 100% sure that it's over 10 days. I was very, very tired, so I couldn't even think, about the days or anything else. I just wanted to get to somewhere safe.
بس فوق ال10 أيام بقينا بالبحر.
But it's definitely over 10 days.
Yeah, I read that you spent 14 days at sea. And some of those days you didn't have food, I think. Is that right?
Yes, that's true.
We had to drink water from the sea.
How many people were you on the boat with you?
From what I remember, it was 75 people.
You left from Lebanon, and where were you hoping to go?
كنا نحن طالعين على إيطاليا.
We were going to Italy.
Why did you decide to go on a boat? Could you? This is a stupid question, but could you get on a plane? I guess you couldn't.
لا ما كان نقدر يعني.
They couldn't go to any country as refugees in the airplane. They were obviously allowed to go as like for tourism, etc., but not as refugees, because obviously they don't have degrees or anything. Herself and her husband. So this was the only option.
Yeah, I'm really sorry that's the only option. It's really terrible that you had to take this boat. I'm really sorry for you and your family. So you were at sea for many days, over 10 days, and I read that your boat went into Malta's waters, but the Maltese came. And can you tell us what happened when you were rescued?
Sometimes the engine works and other days the engine goes off, and I don't really understand a lot or know a lot about engines and how they work. So from what I remember is sometimes the engine works, sometimes it doesn't. The last 2 days the boat was actually water was getting into the boat, so people were trying to take the water out of the boat. That's all I can remember.
وكمان يعني كان كتير في.
So basically, a lot of ships were going past us, but we were trying to actually seek help. We tried to ask for help from these ships, but most of them didn't help us. One of the ships actually stopped and gave us some water and very little food. It was just biscuits and stuff like that, but very tiny biscuits. That was around the 5th or 6th day from being lost in the sea. But that was all.
Wow. And so there were ships that didn't help you when they gave you food. And so was it the Maltese Coast Guard that found you, or do you not know?
ما بعرف ولا أي شيء. أنا ما.
I'm not really sure who took us or who rescued us, because they didn't speak to us. Whenever we tried to speak to them or ask them who they are, what they want, or what they're doing, or where we are actually going, or they taking us, they wouldn't really answer. They would just say no. Some people from the boat who are in the boat who speak minimal English try to get in touch or talk to the guards, but they wouldn't reply to them.
That's really horrible. And I heard. And how did you feel? At that time when they were taking you somewhere you didn't know. Did you feel safe, or How did you feel?
لا كنت حاسة بالأمان بس
Yeah, so basically, I felt safe, even though I didn't know where we are going, but I felt safe. We spent too long, like we spent a lot of time in the sea. I was okay, but since as soon as the sun started to rise, they started to separate me and my husband. They wouldn't allow us to speak to each other or see each other, and that's when I felt a bit scared.
Where did they separate you and your husband? Was that on the boat or when you made it to land?
من كنا بقلب البيت.
As soon as they were trying to transfer us from the small boat to another smaller boat, that's where they took from my husband from me.
That's horrible. And I think we'll talk about this later, but your husband, when he was in the boat, he was helping to take water out of the boat, right?
أكيد كان
Yes, that's correct. He was trying to obviously take the water out of the boat, especially the last day. He was trying to, to help me as much as he can, and to keep me as safe as possible. So he was trying to help them to and get the water out of the boat.
Okay, and then you were taken to Greece, I think. And what happened next?
بعدين صاروا ينزلوا
So basically, as soon as they got us out of the boat, they gave us some towels to dry ourselves. They tried to give us water, food on the beach. This was all happening at the beach, and then after that, they took us to a very big stadium.
They took you to a stadium. What happened in the stadium?
بعدين صاروا يعيطوا
Then after that, they started calling each one of us, and they were investigating with us.
And what did they ask you? What kind of questions were they asking you?
قديش عمرك
Yeah, but they asked about ages, about their names, where they're coming from, where they are originally from, and what happened with them.
يعني
But we weren't all asked the same questions. Males were asked, or men were asked different questions from women.
What did they ask that was different? What questions did they ask?
هيك اسمع أنا
So they were asking who actually helped you to come to here, and who did you pay to?
And then did some people say that your husband was driving a boat or something? Or I think your husband was accused of smuggling, right?
أنا ما
I haven't heard or seen anyone that says that, because I think they were outside at the time that the investigation was happening. So no one mentioned that her husband was actually doing the smuggling thing. But I know that my husband was innocent.
Yes, I think it's clear that your husband was innocent because he was helping get rid of the water, right? If he didn't do that, then the boat might sink.
هو كمان كان
And this was he was trying to get the water out of the boat to keep me safe and to keep our child safe as well, our baby.
So your husband, Dawood, he was put in prison, right? And accused of smuggling a boat. And, can you tell us about his life in prison? Did you go and see him?
ليك هلا من
As soon as we got to this island, they took my husband. Literally the next morning, they took my husband. I stayed there for 6 days, not knowing where he was or where they took him. But I'm sure at the time they took him to the custody. There was an interpreter. I asked her to ask them where they took my husband, but obviously there was no clear response. No one told me where he is. I was crying. I wasn't in the best situation.
And you were pregnant at that time, and you didn't see him for, I think he was in prison for like 1 year, 18 months, I think, right? He was in prison for a long time.
شفته
I saw him only twice when I go to the court.
And what was it like when you saw him? I guess it was quite emotional.
بس يعني أول ما شفته
The first time she saw him, it was very, very emotional. It was very difficult for me because I had, so basically it's the father of my child and he couldn't even hold his own child in his hands. So it wasn't great. It was very emotional.
Yeah, I'm really sorry that happened to you. It's really terrible. It's just I don't know why Europe treats people this way. It's so wrong.
أكيد غلط يعني لأنه يعني هيك شخص
Yeah, it's actually very wrong because there was no reason, there was no evidence. They imprisoned him for no reason. Basically, he was innocent, which was very wrong.
And I think maybe this is a personal question, but you had to give birth to your child alone. You couldn't see your husband at all? Like, did you have support while you were pregnant in Greece?
لا ما في حدا دعمني هلا
Yeah, no, I had no support. At the moment, I'm living with an organization. They obviously they are not my relatives. They don't know me very well, so the treatment is not the best, basically. But there was no support when I was giving birth.
That's really sad. I'm really that's horrible. So Dawood was in court and his case was delayed for a long time. But eventually he was released and or his case was dropped. Can you tell us about that?
هلا هو كان عارف
He knew that he was going to be released because he knows that he's innocent. He's done nothing, but it was the court that was delaying everything.
والمحامي كان كتير يطمنا
The lawyer was very, very nice. He used to always assure us that it's gonna be okay, and he helped us a lot. The only thing that made me feel okay and safe and assured as well was the lawyer. He was always telling me that there's nothing against your husband and there is no evidence against him. He's done nothing, and he's innocent, so obviously he's gonna get out.
That is good. I've interviewed your lawyers before, Dmitris and Alexandros. They are great guys. They're so good. So I'm glad they were your lawyers.
صح صح
Yes, that's true. They are very nice.
And so, can you tell us, Nadia, what are you doing now? I think you're still in Greece. And have you seen Dawood? Have you seen your husband now? Is he free?
لا هلا بعد
Unfortunately, not yet. He's still in prison for now. They are doing paperwork and stuff like that. Once this is all done, then they can release him.
Well, I hope he gets released very soon.
إن شاء الله هلا قول المحامي إنه ما راح ياخذك
Hopefully, and from what I heard from the lawyers, that it's not gonna take long. Hopefully, I'm fine if it takes a few months. As soon as it's not years, and as soon as I know that my husband is innocent and he will be released, sooner or later.
And can you tell us, you don't have to give too much details, but what are your plans now? When your husband is free, what do you plan to do?
هلا هو لا أكيد يعني
We want to do the things that we were planning to do when we first got out of Lebanon, and or basically when we actually the things that we decided to go out of Lebanon for, which is get ourselves a nice house or even build ourselves a nice house, settle down and look for a bright future.
And how do you feel about the way that Europe has treated you, the way that Greece has treated you and welcomed you? How do you feel about that?
يعني لكن في ناس
There are very, very, very nice people, and there are also very racist people. It's always two types of people. Obviously, it doesn't feel good at all when someone is being racist to me. I would always question why me? We are all people. We are all humans. So racist people always tend to make you feel like we are less than them in a way.
Do you feel that the way that the Greek government has treated you and your husband is a racist the way that they treated you, and they accused you of being smugglers.
أكيد يعني هلا
Of course, it was terrible because my husband was, at the time, he was only 22 years old, and they took him to custody, or they imprisoned him with no evidence. There was no evidence, and I was pregnant. And like every other woman, when she's pregnant, obviously she needs support, she needs care, she needs her husband with her. Whenever I go out on the street and I see a lady, a pregnant lady with her husband, I would feel sad and upset that my husband is not with me.
Yeah, it's really sad. And I just can't believe what happened to you. I think if I was on the boat, then, or, people that were look like me on the boat, then they would rescue you straight away.
يمكن.
Yeah, maybe.
And Nadia, how do you feel about your future now? How do you feel about your future now?
يعني أنا كتير إنه مبسوطة إني راح.
I'm very, very happy because especially my husband now, he's not going to be in prison anymore. Also, he's very young. He's only like 22 years old. And now he can live with us. He can see his daughter while growing. And we can live happily now.
Good, I hope so too. I hope that things work out for you and Dawood and your child in Greece. And I hope you can do everything that you want to do in your life.
شكرا لك.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for your time, Nadia. It's been really good talking to you. And hopefully we'll speak again at another time.
إن شاء الله. قولي تشرفت بمعرفتكم.
It's very nice meeting you.
All right, this is Editing Ben here from the future. What you just heard was the interview with Nadia. What we're going to now is the next part of the episode. We're going to hear from Alexandros, who was Dawood's lawyer. Here we go. Alexandros, thank you very much for coming back on the Civil Fleet podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me one more time.
So we spoke last year or the year before, I think it was last year. We had you on the podcast, and actually you helped me with another interview I did with, where was he from? Somalian refugee, whose name I can't remember at the moment, but we did the episode before, and you helped me out with that. So today we're going to talk about Nadia. In this episode, we'd have already listened to an interview with Nadia, and I know that you were Nadia and Dawood's lawyer, so we're going to talk about that case. But before we start talking about that, I wondered if you could tell us about yourself, Alexandros. If anyone has not listened to that previous episode, they don't know who you are. So give us a background about yourself.
Yeah, of course. My name is Alexandros. I'm a criminal and human rights lawyer based at the Greek island of Chios at North Aegean Sea. I finished political sciences at first from the University of Athens. It was a long time ago, back in 2008, I finished my studies there. And I followed my big love, which was joining law school. So I joined Bradford University in the UK, and I started my LLB degree in law there. As soon as I finished from Bradford University, I joined Cardiff University, where I had my master's degree in maritime law. As soon as I finished my studies in the UK, I came back to my mother island, to Chios Island, and it was in the middle of a refugee crisis, where I started working on asylum cases as well as criminal cases concerning refugees as a private lawyer in the beginning. So back then I was confronted with a situation where in the refugee camp of Chios, which was designed to accommodate approximately 1,000 people, it was actually accommodating more than 5,000 desperate human beings. At that point, I was really enjoying providing legal assistance to all these people, because I thought I had found my purpose in life, being the voice of all these voiceless people at courts. I had the opportunity to make a direct impact by helping refugees, defending their fundamental human rights, and participating in that way at upholding the standards of treatment for these people. During all these years, I have seen the unfairness concerning refugee trials. I have experienced the way that the accusations are awarded to them, how the judges treated them, how state lawyers were assigned by the judges just a few minutes before the trials, the court hearings starts, without even having the time to get knowledge on the particulars of the cases, reading the case files, and how easily, as a result, were sentenced in hundreds of years of imprisonment without even the existence of any kind of solid evidence for this.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like people are getting, people who like cross the sea into Greece and even into the UK as well, and different places in Europe are getting sentenced for hundreds of years, right? For either touching the steering boat or being accused of steering the boat. It's absolutely crazy. And what was it that got you, like, when you started studying law, did you want to do it about, did you always want to defend asylum seekers and refugees and this kind of thing? Or, why did you get involved in that? You could have made loads of money if you was a corporate lawyer, I guess.
I think it just happened. When I finished, my big love was always to study law. So after I finished from Athens University, I decided to go to the UK and study law. So as soon as I finished from there and came back, I saw what was going on here, and I wanted to be a part of changing things for the better. So I believe this is why I got this specialization on this kind of cases.
Yeah, and I think it's such a good thing to do, and I'm really glad that you do it. You sound like a great lawyer, and I've spoken to your clients, and they've all got good things to say about you.
Thank you for your nice words.
So let's talk about Dawood and Nadia. So we just had an interview with Nadia on the podcast. It was really great to speak to her, and thank you so much for putting me in touch with her. So you represented Dawood, and he was accused, and I always get this wrong, smuggling or trafficking. I can't remember which. Can you tell us a bit about them?
I will explain you later the differences, but let's take things from the beginning. Dawood is a 22 years old Lebanese national who, along with his pregnant wife, Nadia, fled Lebanon and embarked on a boat heading towards Italy. Their destination was never Greece. Because they had heard about the illegal pushbacks that the Greek Coast Guard was performing the past few years. So I want to explain you something. While historically refugee routes follow the closest points of movement, due to Greece's border policy and aggressive EU guarding and controlling, refugees have been driven to do whatever it takes to avoid the Greek islands, adopting the so-called migration route of Calabria, which is a much longer and much more dangerous route. So the last 3 years at least, the use of this route has multiplied. So after about 6 days in the sea, the engine broke down. At that point, food and water supplies had already almost finished. These supplies were run by the captain of the boat. Consequently, given the condition of Nadia, Dawood, in his effort to make sure that Nadia would have access to food and water, tried his best to have a good relationship with the captain of the boat. So he started by helping him to remove water from the boat in order not to sink. So it is important to know that the boat spent 14 days at sea before being rescued. Passengers of this boat were even forced to drink sea water, and a lot of them were in a truly critical condition. Eventually, almost all of them were rescued by a Maltese boat, which happened to pass by the spot, and of course within the Maltese search and rescue zone. 2 people died during the rescue operation because they fell into the sea and drowned. Also, one pregnant woman had a miscarriage during the trip due to these terrible conditions that I described. The Maltese ship took them to Crete Island, where everyone had access to medical treatment and asylum procedures. However, almost instantly, Dawood was separated by the other passengers, along with 9 more people who were all arrested on smuggling charges by the Greek Coast Guard authorities and sent everyone pre-detained at Aia prison in Crete until the court of the first instance takes place, facing very serious sentences.
Yeah, that's that a lot of the things that Nadia said was you just told us as well. Like Nadia said that they had to drink seawater, which is unbelievable. I don't think you can even do that. I think that like will dehydrate you really quickly, right? And she also said maybe like I think we talked about this before we started recording, but she said that other ships went by and one ship gave her biscuits and stuff, gave them the passengers biscuits, but didn't do anything. Other ships ignored them. I don't know if you know much about that, but does that happen? I think that happens probably quite a lot.
I don't know the particulars of what exactly happened during the trip, but I know for sure that these people, they needed to get rescued, and they didn't want biscuits. They needed access to medical treatment and asylum procedures. It's a responsibility of each European member state to rescue these people, because we're talking about boats which were in distress. Okay, we're talking about overloaded boats. So the definition of being in distress. So the responsibility was to rescue them. If there were ships ignoring them, then they were in breach of this law.
Yeah, and that seems to be happening. Well, I think that happens a lot, right? I remember the case of the Etienne that was in Malta that rescued several. It was a big container ship of some sort that rescued some people in the Mediterranean a few years ago, and then Malta wouldn't allow the ship to come ashore. It kept them at sea for a long time. That was crazy. I have several episodes about that, or at least one episode that focuses on that I'll link to in the show notes. But yeah, I think it's the way that Europe treats the container ships, the way that it treats them, the way that it punishes them for rescuing people is possibly one of the reasons why those ships didn't rescue people. Which, like you said, and it's my understanding that is against the law. You have to help people. It's just not enforced, I guess.
However, it's their responsibility to rescue these people.
Absolutely. And they have to, my understanding...
It's not just a moral responsibility, it's a legal responsibility too.
My understanding is that if you're the captain of a ship and you are aware of a boat in distress, you have to rescue them and you have to tell the authorities, right? We found these people.
Exactly.
And another thing, before we talk about how you got involved, why did they split them up? Like Nadia said, I don't know if you know this actually, but Nadia told me in our interview that when they were picked up by the rescuers, she didn't know who'd rescued her, but I think it was, like you said, the Maltese. She said that they split her away from her husband on that boat. And then they split them up on land as well. Like, can you tell us why? Is that something that happens often? Or did they do it specifically because they wanted to accuse someone of smuggling?
Yeah. Almost immediately after the rescue took place, Dawood was separated from the other passengers and was arrested by the Greek Coast Guard authorities as being one of the persons who was providing help to the captain of the boat. This is considered a felony under the Greek law, which actually implements an EU directive. Because according to this Greek law, according to this EU directive, it doesn't matter if you had any intent. It doesn't matter if you didn't profit from the activity. If you touch the helm of the boat, or even if you provide any kind of help to the captain of the boat, well, then you are guilty of facilitating illegal migration and you are considered a smuggler. In particular, the charges that Dawood was facing included forming or joining with intent a criminal organization to illegally transport third countries' nationals to Greece for profit in a way that it is dangerous and which resulted in 2 deaths and the miscarriage of 1 pregnant woman, as well as with illegal entry into the Greek territory, facing for all these offenses a total sentence of 55 times life sentence. The oxymoron in this is that he was charged with all these offenses just because he helped everyone on the boat so the boat will not sink and have his pregnant wife safe in a totally, as I described you before, unfriendly environment. I believe that whoever was in his position, he would do exactly the same. I would do exactly the same, and you would do exactly the same if it was your wife. If it was the life of your unborn child on the line. Dawood is not a criminal. He's a family man who did everything he could, everything in his power to save the life of his wife, himself, and the life of his unborn child.
Absolutely. And yeah, Nadia told us he was like bailing out water from the boat. And it seems like, according to the law at the moment, unless you sit there and let the boat sink, you're a criminal. That is absolutely insane, right?
It doesn't make any sense. It's an absurd law, and it's a law that needs to be changed. And this is why we're campaigning for the distinction of this law, to make the necessary distinctions, which are very important.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like we really need that. I don't know if you can talk about the captain, but like, was the captain like? Because I think in a lot of cases, the captain of the boat is just the person who's steering, and they might actually be a migrant themselves, and they might. I think I've heard in other cases that if you pay less, you pay slightly less, you have to just steer the boat. I don't know about this specific case. If you can talk about that, though.
In general, this is something that is happening. For example, some people to pay less money or not to pay at all, and adopt a role in this trip. But I was not the defense attorney of the captain in this case, so I cannot tell you his side. So yeah, I can only talk generally.
Okay, yeah, that's I understand. I like it.
Yeah, this is something that is happening.
Yeah, like I'm not sure. Like, yeah, we can't talk about that individual guy.
However, these people are just poor people who are trying to fled, seeking for a better future for them, for their families. I mean, the law should not be the same for them.
Absolutely, I couldn't
It
agree more.
doesn't make any sense. At least.
Like one thing that really annoys me is, people might say that, the people on that boat, Dawood and Nadia, should never have gone on that boat. They should never have made that journey. But like Nadia told me in the interview, she couldn't go. They can't get on a plane to Europe. They can't go, like, for people like me and you, I guess, with our European passports. Although mine's no longer an EU passport. We can go anywhere. I can go anywhere and probably work wherever I want, more or less. But for other people like them, they can't do that. So they are resorted. They have to either resign to stay where they were in the terrible conditions that they're in, or take these dangerous journeys, right?
People who fled from their countries, they do it for a good reason. You do not leave your family, you do not leave your belongings, your everyday life in order to go on a boat to an unknown destination, not knowing what you will find there. So most of them, they're trying to escape from a grave danger or from extreme poverty. So the people who are saying, why didn't you get a visa or why didn't you seek asylum in a country which was near to yours, they have no idea about what they're talking about, and they ignore Schengen Convention and Geneva Convention.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something you hear quite a lot, and it annoys me to hear it. But I think it's good to address it in the podcast. So, how did you end up becoming Dawood's lawyer? How did that happen? How did you even hear about his case?
Being part of the criminalization cases has to do with the fact that these people do not have the means to pay for adequate legal representation. We had cases in the past where families had to sell their own houses in their countries in order to cover these legal expenses. Human Rights Legal Project is a project which was founded in Samos Island in order to get funding for the covering of these legal expenses in cases which concern criminalization of refugees. Dawood and his wife were addressed to this non-governmental organization, HRLP, Human Rights Legal Project, and HRLP assigned us to be Dawood's lawyer for the court of the first instance. Then me and my colleague Dmitris came into contact with them. We received the case file and started working on this case.
And then, now I'm unmuted. And then, can you I suppose maybe we should, before we talk about the legal case and what happened and how you won, maybe you could. I think I know the difference between smuggling and trafficking. Can I tell you what I think it is, so then you can correct me? So
Yes.
I think that smuggling, well, let's say trafficking. I think trafficking is usually done by organized crime to take someone against their will from somewhere to somewhere. So maybe like they'll kidnap people, take them to another country, and put them into sex slavery or this kind of thing. I think that's trafficking. And smuggling is, putting someone in your lorry, or it's some kind of, people that want to move from one place to another, and you kind of help them do that. Is that the difference?
It was almost correct. Almost. In general, there is a huge misconception between the two terms. Human trafficking involves exploiting men, women, or children for the purposes of forced labor or sexual exploitation, as you said. Traffickers use force, fraud, or coercion to get someone to sell sex or work in exploitative conditions. Trafficking, unlike smuggling, though does not necessarily involves movement or transportation at all. A person can be trafficked in their own home. On the other hand, human smuggling involves the provision of a service, such as transportation or fraudulent documents to an individuals who voluntarily seek to gain legal entry into a foreign country. The people the smugglers bring from one place to another place illegally generally have chosen to make the trip themselves for a number of reasons. Some are feeling violence or poverty. Most of them are paying someone to help them make this journey. So these are the differences.
Thanks for clearing that up. Someday that will stay in my brain and I will remember the difference. So Dawood was charged with smuggling, not trafficking, correct?
Correct.
And so can you tell us about the legal case? Kind of how did you win it? And maybe we can say where Dawood is now.
Yes, of course. After the case had been postponed for, if I remember correctly, it was 6 times because of the strike of lawyers, general elections, etc. His case was held by the court of Heraklion 1.5 years later. In this court hearing, me and my colleague, Dmitris, we used the legal argument that we had recently used and had it already accepted by other courts in Greece, which had to do with the lack of jurisdiction of the Greek state to prosecute these people from the first place. Eventually, after 1.5 years that the case was eventually heard, the court accepted once again our argument, and they were all found innocent for all the charges due to the lack of jurisdiction. In this specific case, the destination of the boat, as I stated earlier, was never Greece, but it was Italy. During their trip, the boat had never entered within the Greek sea waters, and the search and rescue operation was never carried out, was never operated by the Greek Coast Guard authorities. In particular, at the time of the rescue, the boat was in the Maltese search and rescue zone, so outside of the Greek sea waters. The passengers were rescued by a Maltese boat and not by the Greek Coast Guard. And this Maltese boat took them to Heraklion of Crete island, despite the boat being in Maltese water at the time of the rescue operation. According to all these, it is clear that under the international maritime law, the Greek state lacks jurisdiction to judge this case because the rescue operation was carried out in the international sea waters, and in particular in a search and rescue zone which was not even Greek, but Maltese. And also, as I stated already, the boat had never entered the Greek sea waters. It remained all the time in the international sea waters and never intended to enter the Greek sea waters, while at the same time they were not even rescued by the Greek Coast Guard authorities, but by a Maltese ship. So our argument became accepted and the prosecution stopped for all the defendants in this case.
That's really good, and it's so true, right? It was not even in Greece. None of this happened in Greece, so what does it have to do with them? So yeah, that was wonderful. I mean, I'm so glad that they were your lawyer. You got them as a lawyers, like, because you guys are so good at what you do. So that's really great. And
my master's degree in maritime law in Cardiff helped a bit.
You have to get your old textbooks out while you were doing the case. Why did maybe we should have talked about this earlier, but why did the Maltese, you probably don't know the answer to this, but why did the Maltese take them to Greece? Were they because I know the Maltese search and rescue zone, I'll try to put a picture to this in the show notes, is quite big, right? Considering the size of Malta. And Malta, just never rescues people at the moment. It just ignores people or it sends them to Italy. But yeah, why Greece?
That's a very good question. I have the impression that the Maltese authorities ordered the captain of the boat who rescued them not to go there and take all these people to Greece. But I cannot tell you this as a fact because, I was not there to see.
Yeah, Nadia said actually that once they were rescued, a few people on the boat that could speak English tried to talk to the rescuers, but they just ignored them and wouldn't speak to them at all. So yeah, it's strange, isn't it? It's funny that they decided to go to Greece.
We'll never find out. We will never find out why this happened.
No, I don't think we will, and I think it may happen again. Do you think?
I hope not. I hope not.
Me too. I hope not. And so, I think maybe what's Dawood's situation now? Because I did the interview with Nadia. People listening to this will seem like the same day, but actually I interviewed Nadia about a week or two ago. So at that time, she said that Dawood was still being detained, but he was on his way to come out. So what's happening with him?
In general, the treatment of Dawood and Nadia from the Greek state was and remains terrible. For those of us who have attended court hearings concerning these kind of cases, understand that in general these people are not the smugglers. These are people who are doing everything in their power to get a better life away from dangers and poverty. They're all individual migrants seeking for a better future. Dawood was not even the captain of the boat. We need to realize that he didn't even touch the steering wheel. He was prosecuted as a scapegoat like thousands of other people in the past. He traveled with his pregnant wife. If you are a smuggler and you gain profit from this kind of activity, you certainly do not take in these trips your wife, and especially if your wife is pregnant. It makes sense. You only make these trips in cases that you or your family are in grave danger and you are trying to escape from a certain situation. However, this is the standard practice of the Greek Coast Guard authorities, because by charging these people with so serious felonies is an attempt to prevent them from trying these journeys from the first place. So casting refugees as smuggler has become a wider policy which is followed by the Greek Coast Guard and aims, of course, at preventing them to come to Europe. Dawood spent 1.5 years in prison for no good reason, while his wife was left alone, totally alone, raising their child with very, very limited means and almost no support from the Greek state. Both she and her child were awarded refugee protection, while at the same time Dawood had no access to this asylum procedure because at that time he was considered a criminal prisoner and he was pre-detained at the prison of Agia in Chania, as I told you before. So after he was proved innocent from these criminal offenses and he was released from the prison, he was arrested once again, administratively this time, because he did not have legal papers. And until now, this person is being kept into custody until his asylum application is examined by the asylum authorities. As a Greek state, we exhaust our severity to these vulnerable people. It is a totally cruel approach that I will never understand. This is not the legacy that most of us want to leave for the next generations. I want to belong to the right side of the history. So I choose to be on the side of these people who have suffered a lot, seeking for a better future, for a safe destination. I hope that soon Dawood will be able to leave the police station, to get released, get his asylum application accepted, considered as a refugee, because he is a refugee. And this absurd detention framework of administratively will stop, and he will be reunited with his wife Nadia and their daughter Khadija.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess once he's out, it's another struggle then, isn't it? I think the way that the Dublin Agreement works is that they have to stay in Greece now, and hopefully they get treated better once his assuming that it all goes okay with his his refugee application. So yeah, was there any I think I've got one more question to ask for this interview, but was there anything else you wanted to say about Dawood and Nadia specifically?
I hope that they will reunited very soon and they will have their life that they were dreaming when they started this trip, because they have suffered a lot, and they deserve a better future for them and their child.
Absolutely. And one thing that struck me about that Nadia is she's so young. I think she's 20, and Dawood is maybe like I think he's 3 years older or something, right? Something like that.
Yes, they're both very young. Yes.
So hopefully, like they can get on with their life soon.
If the Greek state allows them, I hope so too.
So this is my last question then. Can you tell us about any other similar cases, either that you've worked on or that are going on in Greece now or have happened in Greece, to Dawood and Nadias? And there must be many, probably too many for this podcast. We could talk for hours, I suppose, if we went through them all. But yeah, can you talk about any similar cases?
Yeah, we had 3 similar cases recently where the offense took place at the international sea waters. All defendants spent significant time pre-detained in prison facing smuggling offenses. However, when their courts took place, they're acquitted on the ground that the Greek courts do not have jurisdiction to judge their case, and thus could not be prosecuted in that sense. The 2 cases took place at Rhodes Island Court, while the other at Chania Court in Crete as well. The 2 cases in Rhodes concerned 2 families which were accused for smuggling. Smuggling all the other passengers, while the last case concerned a Turkish national, Kurdish origin, who spent more than 2 years in prison before the court found that it had no jurisdiction to prosecute him. Ben, this is our daily life, and these cases sheds light to this sad reality, to this daily life, to this sad reality experienced by thousands of refugees in Greece. Something needs to change.
Absolutely. And actually, you mentioned earlier that you're campaigning against these laws, right? Or there's campaigns to change them. Is that like something you're involved in? Is there like an official campaign that people can check out? Or I don't know. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
It's a campaign that was initiated by some members of the European Parliament, mostly from the leftists. And we have already participated twice in these kind of discussions, which took place at the European Parliament. And we are optimistic, and we believe that eventually all these initiatives will lead to an outcome which will help on the distinction of the law, of the European directive, because this European directive is the one that is being implemented by the EU states.
Yeah, and that absolutely has to change, right? And then hopefully we could see less of these cases. I think just the other day in the UK, as we're recording, the UK charged someone for a similar case to Dawood. Like they accused him of steering the boat, of being a smuggler, and the Home Office, they were sharing pictures of him and as promoting it, like, yeah, look, we've got this dangerous criminal. And I think I don't actually know that much about it, but I think he's very young and he's clearly just someone that was, had to steer a boat, I think.
They're the scapegoats. They're the sacrificial lambs.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's an election happening in the UK this year, and a lot of it is going to focus on these kind of cases. It's just horrific that this is the debate. lock up the migrants seems to be the thing. And when the US election happens, that will just be absolutely terrible for a few months. Does it feature much in Greece, the US election? Like, it's wall to wall, it's just covered all the time in the UK. It's like our election. What's it in Greece when they have the US election? Is it all over the news all the time?
Yes, all the time. But, now we have finished with our elections. And, normality has come into our lives from now on for a few years.
For a few years.
The important thing is to have dialogues like this, which will help our everyday life for the better,
Yeah, I hope so. Well, Alexandros, it's been really great to talk to you again. I'm so glad you came back on the podcast. Hopefully we'll have you back on again in future. That'll be really good. And thanks so much.
Thank you once more, Ben, for the invitation one more time. And I hope we'll repeat it with a better subject next time.
Maybe we could talk about football or something else.
And good news.
Great. Well, Alexandros, thank you so much for coming on the Silver Fleet. That was a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you.
Okay, that was episode 53 of the Silver Fleet podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks again to Nadia and to Alexandros and to Miriam for coming on the Silver Fleet podcast and giving us their time and talking to us. Should have some more episodes soon. I wanted to have more out this month, but been quite busy, so I've not been able to get any more out, but managed to sneak this one in February. Hopefully we'll get 2 out in March. If you like what the Silver Fleet is doing and would like to help us to continue to platform the amazing people that we have on here, you can do that by going to ko-fi.com/silverfleet. That's ko-fi.com/silverfleet, and you can make a small donation there if you like. That would really help. The costs are really small to make this podcast, but any help would be really grateful. Also, you can share us around, give us a rating on podcast app and that kind of stuff. That does really help. We're on YouTube as well, so you can check us out on YouTube, give us a thumbs up on all that jazz, like and subscribe as they say on YouTube. Right, that's the end of this episode. It's been a really good one. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let us know if you've enjoyed it also. That would be quite cool. A bit more feedback would be nice. That's really passive aggressive. Right, I'm going to end this episode now. Cheers, see you later. Bye bye.